One of the things that I've learned being the CEO and founder of Market Briefs, which is a financial newsletter company, is that people really, unfortunately, start caring about their money when times are bad. Because when times are good, people like to spend money and they don't really care about things going wrong. But then when times are bad, that's when people want to know, what do I do with my money to protect myself? Usually when it's too late. We're in a strange time where our economy is changing and inflation is still hurting so many people, and there are so many issues with the global economy. So what I want to do today is talk about 9 habits that keep so many people broke. That way you can stop doing these 9 things right now. The first point that I want to talk about is you have just one stream of income, because if you just rely on your one stream of income and this is the only income that you have, and you're like the majority of people and you don't have any savings and you don't have any investments, well, you're just one step away from being broke. Because now if you are to get fired, or if your company were to go under and you get laid off, or if you can't work because you get sick, or because something happens in life and you now can't go into work to get paid, well, now you no longer have the stream of income, but you still have all of your expenses. You still have to pay for your house bill, you still have to pay for your rent, your mortgage, you still got to pay for your car, you still got to pay for your gas, you still got to pay for your groceries. Your expenses don't go away, but your income is now gone. This is where now you don't want to just rely on this one stream of income. Now, I'm not saying you got to go out and find another job. You don't got to go out and start a business. You don't got to go out and start a side hustle, but you got to start thinking a little bit different here, where you're not just relying on your stream of income in order to survive. Because what wealthy people do is they work. Now, if you're working for an income, that's fine. Now, what you want to do is you want to take some of this income and invest this money into assets. That way now you have things that are now working to build you wealth. Because when you own assets, you're putting your money to work. When you go to work to get a paycheck, you are physically working to get paid. You're exchanging your hours for dollars. But when you invest your money into assets, now you're putting your money to work. Now your money is working to make you more money. Your money can work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can't. You can work hard, you can sacrifice weekends, you can sacrifice evenings, but you still gotta sleep. You still gotta shower. You still gotta go to the bathroom. Now I know what you're thinking, but Jaspreet, I can work when I go to the bathroom. Sure, but your money doesn't need to do all that, which is why you need to start putting your money to work. And the only way that you can do that is if you don't spend all of your income. So now you need to spend less money. And then take this money that you're not spending and put it to work. You need to invest that money. I'll talk about the different places and how you can invest that money a little bit later in this video, but this requires you now to start living below your means. The second point that I want to talk about probably applies to 99% of America, and this is that you are product rich before you are actually rich. Now look, I'm going to be completely honest here. I don't make these videos to get you to like me. I make these videos so you're better with your money, and the reality is if you drive a Benz, if you're wearing Gucci, if you're wearing Louis Vuitton, if you got Apple AirPods, if you have any of these designer name brand things, but you don't have a rental property, you don't have an investment portfolio, you don't any stocks, your priorities are in the wrong place, and you're product rich, but you're not actually rich. Now, if you're watching this video, chances are you've already taken some steps to be better with your money, but just think about this for a second. I'm sure we all know somebody who has a lot of nice stuff. They earn a regular income, but they're driving a nice car. They have a nice home. They have that Rolex. They have a nice watch. They have all the nice things. They spend a lot of money, but they have nothing here. They show how rich they are, right? You're rich on the liability side. Liabilities are things that take money away from your pocket. Assets are things that put money in your pocket. You buy assets to make money. You buy liabilities to look like you're rich. So the interesting thing about these liabilities is you look rich, but these things that make you look rich are actually keeping you broke. Assets are things that you buy that make you look broke, but they're making you wealthy. When you go out and you start investing your money in the stock market, you don't look rich because you have nothing to show for it. You don't have a nice belt to show off. You don't have a nice car to show off. You don't have a big home. You just have a big portfolio. And when you buy a rental property, you have something that's paying you, but you can't show it off the way that you can a Gucci belt. And so what happens? Well, when you own assets for the short term, you don't look rich. You actually look broker than you were before, because now more of your money is going out to buy you these assets, which will make you wealthier in the future. However, when you're buying all these liabilities right now, you look rich today, but you have no money to actually make you real rich. What wealthy people do, and what I want you to start doing, because you can start this with like 10 bucks, 25 bucks, whatever you have, is that they always, no matter what, they prioritize buying these before they're buying these. Take a little bit of money every month and make sure that every month from now on, no matter what you do this, whatever you want to start with, 10, 20, 30, $100, $1,000, it does not matter, but you have to start with something. Put some money aside every single month, no matter what happens, and use that to buy these assets, whether it's stocks, whether it's real estate, whether it's something else. You need to start buying these assets before you spend all your money on these liabilities. Number 3, you do not value your time. If you wanted to go out to the Gucci store and you wanted to buy this $3,000, you can see what it looks like, $3,000 ugly or beautiful handbag, depending on who you are. If you want to buy this $3,000 handbag, how much is it going to cost you? Now you might say, Jaspreet, you just said it, $3,000. What do you mean? Maybe it's going to cost me a little bit of interest if you got to go finance it on your credit card, but $3,000 is the cost. Well, not necessarily, because if you're getting paid $20 an hour, sure, it'll cost you $3,000, but you're missing the point. At $20 an hour, this purse isn't going to cost you $3,000. It's going to cost you 150 hours of your life. And now you really got to start valuing your time. How much is your time really worth? Are these things, these liabilities that you're buying, really worth the time that it costs to afford this item? Now, there's nothing wrong with buying nice things. I know I make fun of Gucci, Louis Vuitton, all that. If you like it and you can afford it, I don't care. Go out and buy it. But the key is you gotta be able to afford it. Because now if you're sacrificing your assets, if you're sacrificing the ability to become wealthy because now you wanna have the nice stuff today, well then you're doing something wrong and that is gonna keep you broke. The 2008 real estate crash happened when I was in high school, and during that time I was working on this little teen party business and I was making a little bit of money here and there. And I remember that when I made $1,000, I went out and I took the $1,000 and I bought this really fancy studded up watch which looked really cool, but today this watch is worthless. It made me look rich when I was in high school, but it did nothing for me. But at the same time, I remember I really liked Ford Mustangs, but I couldn't buy a Ford Mustang. My dad said he wouldn't give me a Ford Mustang, so I didn't have a Ford Mustang, but I liked Fords. And at that time, I remember the Ford stock was right around $2 a share. I didn't have thousands of dollars to go out and buy the Ford stock, but I had a little bit of money, maybe $100 or a couple $100, and I went out and I bought the Ford stock at $2 a share. Now, if I took that $1,000 and I didn't buy that watch, which made me look rich, and instead I took that $1,000 and I invested it into the Ford stock, well, that money would have been worth a lot more today. I would have at least 5 or 6 times my money if I would have just bought that Ford stock instead of buying that watch. That watch today is worth nothing. The Ford stock, if I had bought $1,000, would be worth at least $5,000 today. Number 4, you are over relying on your 401k to be able to become wealthy or retire wealthy. Back in the day, retirement used to be what they call a 3-legged stool. So I'm gonna try my Bob Ross right here and draw the stool where one leg would be your pension, one leg would be your Social Security, and one leg would be your investments. So what has happened over the last number of decades is that first, pensions have become a thing of the past. The only time you read about pensions is in history books or when you hear about pensions going bust or going bankrupt or having to cut their pensions. So pensions are not there anymore. If you are under the age of 45, do not plan on getting a pension. Then we have Social Security. Social Security is this thing where now when you get paid a salary, you pay Social Security and your boss pays Social Security as well. So like I pay Social Security when I take out a salary, and for all of my team members, my employees that I have, my company has to pay Social Security as well as my employees' salaries. They have to pay Social Security as well. Now, the interesting thing about Social Security and the unfortunate thing about Social Security is that the Social Security fund is drying up. So what that means is if you're under the age of 45 right now, the Social Security income that you're paying today isn't going to fund your Social Security checks. It's going to fund somebody else's Social Security. And so because Social Security is drying up, it's going to create a big problem with Social Security and why you don't want to rely on Social Security. And this is where everybody says, but the government can just print bigger Social Security checks. They can just do something else. And you're right. If nothing changes, unless the government raises their taxes for Social Security, they can just print bigger Social Security checks. However, that comes at a cost, because when you print more money, it's what inflation is. It devalues your dollar, which causes the price of things to go up. So sure, the government can print you a $10,000 or $1 million Social Security check for that matter. But when they print you these bigger Social Security checks, what's also going to happen is your groceries are going to rise and your housing costs are going to rise. You can never outprint inflation. And so you do not want to rely on Social Security, and this is going to become a bigger and bigger problem as inflation stays a problem and as the Social Security fund continues to dry, unless something major happens on the tax side for Social Security. But again, you don't want to rely on the government or the Fed or even a random guy on YouTube to take care of you, which is why you do not want to rely on the Social Security, which leaves the investment side. Now, over the last couple of decades, we've seen the growth of the 401k. Now, the interesting thing is many people think that their 401k is what they need to retire off of, that your 401k will take care of you. However, even the founder of the 401k has come out openly and said that the 401k has become a monster and that the 401k has gone awry because so many people are now using their 401k as their sole retirement planning tool. It was never intended to be your sole investment plan. It was never intended to be your sole retirement plan. So if your 401k is your only form of investment, you need to start doing more ASAP. What that means on a more practical level is don't change anything that you're doing with the 401k yet. But what I want you to do is now take more of your income and put it aside and now start investing this money yourself. Maybe invest it into the stock market, maybe invest in real estate, maybe invest in cryptocurrency if that's what you believe, but have some more fundamental investments being the base of your portfolio, and then start managing your own investments. Now, if you have more money, you can hire a money manager, you can hire a financial advisor if you feel more comfortable doing that. But I think it can be very beneficial for everybody to understand the basics of money management and investing your money. Now, when you start investing your money, either you're going to realize that you hate it or that you love it. Because if you hate it, then yeah, have somebody else do something else with their money. That way you're not the one that's dealing with the money, because if you're going to lose all your money, let somebody else manage it for you. But if you enjoy it, then you can start asking yourself, do you want to be more involved with investments, or are you okay with your current investment portfolio and your investment possibilities? I'm an investor, so I don't use a 401k. I don't use an IRA. I invest my money myself outside of these government-sponsored entities, these retirement funds, because I can get better returns. I have more investment options. I have more freedom and I have more control over my money. And I also have better tax breaks by investing my money myself outside of these entities. Now again, this takes more work, more education, more time on my end, but you got to figure out what's right for you. The 401k, the IRA, these are great for the average person and the average investor. However, you want to understand the value that they provide, and you don't want to just throw all of your money into here and think that it's enough. You want to make sure that you're investing your money yourself, which is where now you got to start doing your research. Like at the very least, if you want to start investing in stocks, if you don't want to start picking stocks, you can consider investing in index funds or ETFs. These now are not individual companies, but rather they are a basket of companies. For example, the S&P 500 is a group of the biggest 500 companies on the stock market. Now, instead of you going out and individually investing in all 500 of these companies, you can invest in an index fund or an ETF that give you exposure to all 500 of these companies. So now you invest in this one thing, which is giving you exposure to the biggest 500 companies on the stock market. So you're essentially investing your money into the companies that make America, America. And so if you believe in the future of the American economy, it's a very simple and accessible way for you to start investing without spending a whole bunch of time. And you don't even need a lot of money. Like you can start with as little as $100. Now, if you do want some more guidance on how do you invest your money, how do you do that research, how do you do that type of fundamental analysis, you can check out Market Insiders. It's an investing education app that I created where every week you get access to stock market, real estate, and cryptocurrency coaching. So if you're looking for some extra guidance, you can try out Market Insiders for free with a 10-day trial. So if you want to try out Market Insiders for free, I'll put the link to how you can do that down in the description below. The fifth habit that you want to break, and this also applies to the vast majority of people, is that your money has no job. Your money has no plan, because the financial statement for the majority of people looks like this. You make an income, and then you pay for your expenses, and then after you pay for your expenses, you wonder where all your money went. I want you to break out of this and create a job for every dollar that you earn. The simplest way that you can do this, and you can create your own version of this, this is just a simple way for you to start, is to follow something like my 75-15-10 plan, which says that from now on, every dollar that you earn is going to flow through this funnel. And this funnel says that 75 cents of every dollar that you earn is the maximum that you can spend. 15 cents out of every dollar that you earn from now on is the minimum that you are going to invest, and 10 cents out of every dollar that you earn from now on is the minimum that you save. Now, once you start doing this, you have created a system for your money, and you can automate this. Like, you can create multiple different bank accounts. And now you have a bank account for your checkings, your spending money. You have a bank account for your investment cash. Maybe this money is automatically invested. Maybe this money is sitting there waiting to be invested, just depending on what it is that you want to do. And then you have a separate bank account for your savings. And now what you can do is you create 3 different bank accounts, and you can create an automatic withdrawal. So now anytime you get paid, money automatically leaves, goes into the different bank accounts. This way, when Amazon has a sale on big screen TVs, you don't accidentally use your investment money or your savings money on that TV. The one thing that I want to mention about this is that your savings have to be done strategically, because anytime you are in a high inflationary environment, your savings are losing value to inflation. And so what you want to do now is you don't want to just save your money to save it. You don't want to save your money forever. You want to save your money strategically. And what that means is you want to create an emergency fund. And this could be anywhere between 3 months worth of expenses and a year's worth of expenses, depending on what your risk tolerance is. And once you save that savings fund, you don't save any more money, because now you have built the savings fund, and now you only save money if, one, for emergencies, but you save money for a big purchase, or you save money for an investment. If you're not saving money for one of these 3 reasons, you should not be saving this money. Instead, you should be putting it here for your investments. That way now you're spending no more than 75% of every dollar that you earn, but you're investing a quarter of every dollar that you earn. And now, no matter how much your income is, whether it's 40 grand a year or 400 grand a year, your system is going to scale with you. Number 6, you are financing a car that you cannot afford. At the time of re-recording this video, the average car payment for a new car is $644 a month in America. And if you have a used car, the average payment on that is $488 a month. Now, the person who says it the best is Dave Ramsey, because what he says is act your wage. And if you are now financing a car, that means that you have bought a depreciating liability, a liability that's now losing value, and you're paying interest on something that's losing value. Now, the real cost of your car isn't just your monthly payment, it's the lost opportunity of what you could have done with this money. So let's just take the average of this. So the average of this is $566 a month. If you did not have a car payment now, and you took this $566 a month, and now you are investing it, and you can get a 7% return on your money over the long term. So we're not talking about great returns, just average returns over the long term. And this does not mean that you have to get 7% every year, just over the long term, which is below the average stock market, below the average real estate return. Over the next 45 years, if you start this when you're 21, you will have over $2 million, versus if you just kept buying cars, you got a car which is worth whatever a car is worth, right? There's a lot of money to be made if you just invest this money. And if you can get a better return on your money, if you can get a 10% return on your money, which is closer to the long-term average. So now instead of having this car payment, you're going to invest this money into whatever you want. Instead of paying $566 a month for your car, you're going to be investing this money. Well, now you're going to have over $5 million, actually close to $6 million if you can invest this money instead and get a 10% return on your money. Now, what you might be thinking is, Jaspreet, I still need a car. What do you mean? How am I supposed to get around life without a car payment? Yeah, you're absolutely right. I get it, you need a car. But do you really need a $50,000 Benz right now? Instead of having this car payment, go out and sell your car and then buy a used but good working condition car with cash. Drive that around and then invest the difference. And if you think it's not possible, well, I'll tell you that it is, because the first time I made $1 million in a year, I was driving a car that was valued, appraised at right around $500. And today, guess what? I'm still driving that car that's worth around $500. The reason why is because I understand the value of this. I'm investing heavily back into myself and my business, Market Briefs. Now, to be honest, I probably will go out and buy a nicer car sometime soon, but right now I still have employees that drive better cars than I do. And the reason why is because I want to invest this money aggressively. And guess what? When you have this more expensive car, guess what? Your insurance is a lot higher. You got to pay for that premium gas. You got to pay for all these extra fees, versus when you have a car that's a little bit more beat up, that's used, but in good working condition. You don't want a car that has a ton of maintenance issues, but you got a good working condition car. Your fees are also a lot less, and now you have more money to invest for your future. And you got to decide, what is it you want? Do you want that Benz so you look rich now? Or do you want that beat up car that way you can actually become rich and afford that Benz without worrying about the cost? Seventh, you're not tracking your money. In business, what we say is if you can't track it, you can't optimize it. And in your personal finances, it works the exact same way. If you don't know where your money is going or where your money is coming from, it's going to be very hard for you to optimize it. And this one doesn't have to be very hard. Instead, what I want you to do is take a piece of paper, take an Excel sheet, do whatever you got to do. I mean, just keep it as simple as you want. I use Google Excel sheets, Google Sheets, whatever they're called, Google Sheets. But it's very simple. Just write down on one side your income. Write down how much money you made. If you have multiple different streams of income, you have a business, you have investments, write them all down. Then below that, write your expenses. Now, in the beginning, this is going to take you a little bit of time because now you're going to go through your credit card statements, you're going to go through your bank statements, you're going to go through your debit card statements, and you're going to have to see where your money is going. Now, the newer credit cards, the newer banks are going to make it a lot easier because they'll categorize it for you. They'll show you how much money is spent on food. You'll see how much money is spent on your housing. You'll see how much money is spent on gas. You'll see how much money is spent on groceries. Now start breaking it down and write all the different expenses that you have. Did you have charity costs that you paid? Did you give money away? Whatever you did with your money, write all of your expenses here. And now when you're looking at this, it's like a report card for yourself. And this can be very hard to do because, when you're in school, you don't like getting your report card back, but now you have to grade yourself. And you want to be honest because the more honest you are, the better that you're going to be able to optimize this. And as soon as you look at this, you don't even got to have any sort of financial education. You are immediately going to understand where your money is going, and you will immediately be able to find ways for you to optimize your money significantly faster. You might find subscriptions that you didn't even know that you had. You might be able to save a couple $100 there a month without even doing anything because you didn't realize that you kept paying for something that you didn't use. And now you're going to see, oh my God, how much money am I spending at restaurants? Oh my God, how much money am I spending on these random things that I didn't need? And now you can start cutting back on the things that were not that important. Now, of course, cutting back is never fun, but it's one aspect to being able to live bigger, because now once you understand how to live below your means, when you start earning more money, when you start focusing on how to increase the income, now you can use your income more effectively because you know how to spend your money. If you're just increasing your income without any idea of how to control your spending, it's not going to do you any good. And this is what happens to so many people is they always say, oh my God, if I just made some more money, my financial problems would be better. My money problems would be all solved. And then what happens? You work harder for a raise, a bonus, a promotion, and now your income goes up and then boop, your expenses suddenly go up as well. So just once a month. It doesn't gotta take very long. The first time it's gonna take you the longest, but after that, it won't take you more than an hour to do this. Just take a piece of paper, a Google sheet, an Excel sheet, whatever you wanna use, write down your income, write down your expenses, and just track where your money is going. That way you can see where your money is going, and then when you wanna make changes, you can actually apply them and see if you're working towards your goals or not. Number 8, you are spending money based off of things that you can buy instead of things that you can afford. Now, this is becoming very confused in our definition with all the new fintechs, financial technologies out there, because you could pretty much buy whatever you want. Doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account nowadays, because either you can put it on your credit card, and if you don't have a credit card, you can just buy now, pay later. These are very fast growing industries, and the reason why is because we live in this consumerism culture where, hey, I want to buy this nice $3,000 belt, I want to buy this new $3,000 purse from Gucci, Louis Vuitton, whatever, but I don't got $3,000. But all my friends have it. So why do I have to wait until I actually have the money to afford it? Why do I have to wait until I can actually afford it when I can just buy it now? See, it's very easy to buy things, but it's very different to be able to afford something. But the difference is when you can afford something, you don't got to worry about the price. It doesn't bother you later. When you buy something that you can't afford, well, yeah, you got it today, but now tomorrow you're going to be stressing about the price. So now practically, what does this mean? Well, for one, no more financing anything that does not put money in your pocket. No more financing your vacations. No more financing the nice luxury stuff. No more financing anything that isn't directly going to put money in your pocket. The only exception here will be the home that you live in. If you want to finance your home, fine. But we're not talking about your home here. We're talking about the other things, your clothes, the designer stuff. No more financing that. And second, now, when you want to go out and buy something, no more of the net zero thinking. The majority of people have this net zero mindset where they think, oh, if I have 10 grand, I can afford this nice vacation. Well, yeah, you can buy it. And sure, you don't need to go into debt to buy it. But that doesn't mean that you can afford it. Because now if you're going down to zero, the net zero thinking, well, now you have nothing else. And so what you can do here is follow my rule of 5. If you can't buy 5 of them, you can't afford 1 of them. If you are talking about buying your liabilities, the things that you don't need to survive, Follow my rule of 5. That way now you're not overspending and you're not spending all of your money to buy things that you can't actually afford. And number 9, you're not investing your time or money to learn about money. Look, I have friends who are doctors. They're earning big salaries, but they're broke. They have nothing to show for it. They have very little savings. They have little to no investments. But I also have friends that are working regular jobs, regular incomes, who have multiple 6-figure investment portfolios. And I know this because they talk to me about it and they show me that, and the difference between this person making a regular income and the person making $400,000 a year as a doctor now isn't how much money that they're making. It's what they do with the money that they're making, and it all comes down to learning about money. It does not matter what degree you have. If you're not willing to learn about money, it's going to be very difficult for you to become wealthy, and this means now you have to go out of your way to start learning about money. And this is hard because we're never taught about money in school. We're never taught to learn about money. But if you want to become wealthy, you have to be one of the people that's investing your time, investing your money to learn about money. Now, YouTube makes it much easier because now you can watch these YouTube videos for free, but then you can also read books, take classes, invest in your own financial education. You have to always be willing to learn because that's how you're going to get better. And you have to be willing to try, be willing to make mistakes because those mistakes are how you learn, and it's how you will learn to be better with your money. And unfortunately, money is still a taboo topic. Most people don't want to talk about money, right? And the reason why it's such a taboo topic is because many of us are insecure about our money. However, this is where now you got to go out of your way to start learning about money. That way you can be better with your money. That way you can take better care of yourself, take better care of your family, and take better care of your community. Everybody loves it when it's your payday. You love it when it's your payday, the Gucci store loves it when it's your payday, and even the government loves it when it's your payday because that means they get paid too. But what ends up happening to so many people is payday comes, you get excited, you start spending your money, and by the time next payday comes, you spend almost all of your money. Or maybe you decided to splurge on that extra guac and now you have no extra money. Sorry, Guacky. That's why in this video, I want to go over 5 things you need to stop doing when you get paid, starting with number 1, when you get paid, stop wearing your money. See, the problem is most people have their priorities in the wrong place. Everybody says that they want to become wealthy, but most people will have no investments and no wealth, but then spend all their money on cars, clothes, and cute restaurants. The average new car payment at the time of me recording this video in America is $716 a month. Now, what does that mean? That means you're going out and you're financing this $50,000 car, paying $716 a month just to drive the car. This doesn't include insurance. It doesn't include maintenance. It does not include your premium gas, but you're paying $716 a month to finance this car. And in 5 years, this car is not going to be worth $50,000. It might be worth $20,000 because your car is not an asset. Your car is a depreciating liability, meaning it is losing value every single day. I mean, the moment you stick your key in the ignition and you drive it off of the lot, it loses like 15 to 20% of its value right there. So now you're paying interest to drive this car, and this is $716 a month that's going directly to your car company that's making them richer. But what happens now if you play out this scenario? 5 years from now, you're going to go out and you're going to realize you no longer have a car payment. So what most people end up doing is instead of now driving a car without a car payment, is now you got to go ahead and get a new car. Because it's weird to have a car without a car payment. And so now every month for the next 35 years, you're driving around in a car and you're paying a car payment month after month after month. But if you don't own assets, if you don't own a rental property, if you don't own stocks worth as much as your car, your priorities in the wrong place. Because what happens now if instead of taking the $716 a month and putting it into your car, you take this money and you put it into the stock market, and you're not trying to pick stocks, you're just throwing your money into the stock market, and you do this for 35 years. Because you're going to drive a car for the next 35 years as it is, and you can get just an average, actually a little bit below average return of 7% a year. And yes, you can just put your money into an ETF in the stock market and get these types of returns. It doesn't mean that your money has to grow by 7% every year, but on average, we have seen the stock market grow by more than 7% a year over the last century. What does this mean? Well, after 35 years, you would have had $1.2 million, but instead, you got a car that's worth nothing. So now you got to decide, would you rather have the $1 million or would you rather have a car that looks cool but really isn't worth much? That's the first C, cars. The second C are your clothes. Just take a look at the numbers. The CEO of Louis Vuitton, Bernard Arnault, is arguably the richest person in the world. How did he get so rich? because he's selling you the dream of wanting to be rich when in reality, he's the one that's actually getting rich when you're going out and you're buying the Louis Vuitton. And then you have the third C, which are the cute restaurants, because nowadays we live in a society where the phone eats first. So now what do? You go to restaurants not based off of the food, not based off of how much you pay, but based off of what the aesthetics are that we can post on Instagram and show to all of our friends that don't really care. Hold on, Guaki, let me take a picture really quick. Now make sure you hear me on this. There's nothing wrong with driving a luxury and exotic and expensive car. There's nothing wrong with wearing expensive clothes. There's nothing wrong with going to very expensive and nice restaurants. But there is something wrong with it if you're struggling with your money, if you don't have any investments, you don't have any cash flow, and now you're trying to spend all of your money on these places and then you're wondering why you're not wealthy. It's because your priorities are kind of misaligned here. The second thing I want you to stop doing when you get paid is stop letting your money die. This is a chart from the College Investor showing the average annual returns by asset class between the years of 1985 to 2020. And what you'll see is that the investments or assets that provided the best returns were things like stocks and real estate and then even bonds. But at the very bottom of this list, you'll see cash, which provided the worst returns. Now, I have the article down in the description if you want to read it, but that data ended at 2020, before we saw the huge run-up in inflation in 2020, 2021, and into 2022, and even into 2023. So why is cash providing such a low return? Because the value of your cash, your savings, is being devalued because of inflation. I mean, you've seen the prices of your rent, to your groceries, to your housing costs, to your travel costs, to your healthcare costs, to your car costs. Everything has grown so much. And so now if you take your cash and you just save it, and it's sitting there and it's not growing or it's not keeping up with the higher cost of living or the higher inflation, that means your savings are effectively making you poorer each and every day. And this is where, yeah, it's better to save your money than to dump it into a brand new car or into a Louis Vuitton shirt if you're trying to be financially smart. But this is where now there are better things that you can do with your money if you want to actually grow your money. That means if you're putting money aside to save it, you have taken the first step, which is great. But now you got to stop being scared with that money, and you have to be willing to take risks with that money if you want to see your money grow and actually build you wealth. And that means taking some of that money and putting it into investments. And these investments can be stocks, it can be real estate, it can be into your own business idea. Third, stop blindly following people on the internet. What you talking about, Jaspreet? You've seen people selling stock picks and get rich quick systems and simple systems to make a lot of money very quickly. But what I want to remind you here is that nothing worth having comes easy. Period. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Building wealth is hard. Period. Investing your money takes time. Period. You need money to invest. Period. And this is where you have to understand that if somebody's selling you this idea of how you can make 6 figures by doing nothing but sitting on the beach and working 4 hours a day, well, there might be something wrong with that, because why isn't everybody else doing it? Now, here's some reality. Building wealth is very difficult. It takes a lot of work. It takes time. Building a business is hard work. It takes time. Maybe there are ways to do it without working hard, but I haven't been able to figure that out yet. The way that investing works is you got to earn money. Then you take money that you did not spend, which means you got to make some sacrifices. That's hard. And then you take the money that you didn't spend, and now you're going to take this and put it into an investment. That's also hard, because now you're going to figure out, where do you invest it? How do you invest it? What is investing? And that means it's also risky, because there's a chance that you can lose your money, because of course investing has risks. You're never guaranteed to make money when you invest. In fact, you will probably lose money at some point. Every investor does. Now the goal is to make more money than you lose, but you have to be willing to get over the mental hurdle of what happens if I lose $1,000 that I worked so hard to earn. But that's a part of the process, because if you don't invest your money and you don't take that risk, you are never going to see the potential gains. Now, yeah, it sucks losing money, but that's a part of the process. And this is where now you have to be willing to invest in yourself. And if you keep just throwing money into these ideas that will hopefully give you these amazing returns without the effort, well, you're going to be making somebody else rich at your expense. And this is where it's very important for you to remember you worked hard to earn this money. You are going to be the one that works to protect it and grow it the most. Now, this doesn't mean you shouldn't get a financial advisor or a financial planner. They can be very helpful. However, you are the person that worked to grow this money. Don't just throw it into random places hoping that you're going to be able to turn rich by following this amazing advice that you found on the internet. You got to be willing to trust your gut and understand that nothing worth having comes easy. This doesn't mean that all online education is bad. I mean, we have some amazing online education at Briefs Media where we go over things like how do you build wealth, but it's not easy. That's the key that you have to remember. The real secret to success is working hard, taking risks, learning, and keep getting back up. I think it was Dave Ramsey who originally said this, but there's a saying that goes, most people are spending money they don't have to buy things they don't need to impress people they don't even like. And if you're going out and buying things that you can't afford with money that you don't have, now not only are you buying something that's losing your money, but you have to spend tomorrow's income paying it back. I mean, we just saw in America, credit card debt hit a brand new record high. What does that mean? That means people are spending money they don't have. And now when you spend money on your credit card, not only do you have to pay this money back, but you have to pay this money back plus interest. And the crazy thing is, you've probably heard of people talking about the credit card perks, credit card rewards, credit card benefits. I get those. I use a credit card for pretty much everything. I love spending with my credit card. I get a whole bunch of cash back, I get a whole bunch of rewards, I get a whole bunch of perks, but I've never paid a penny in interest on my credit card. And so if you are paying interest on your credit card, you're paying for everybody else's rewards and perks, not to mention all the perks and rewards for the credit card companies, because now when they're flying around in private jets, it's because you are paying for their interest. And this is where you have to make the conscious decision of understanding, if I don't have the money to go out and buy something, I should not go out and put it on my credit card, because when you put money on your credit card, you are essentially shackling yourself up. You are putting yourself into this financial prison where it is very difficult for you to get out of, because not only you have to pay that money back, but you got to pay it back at 19% interest. And now if you're thinking, but Jaspreet, I use buy now, pay later, so I'm not paying any interest. Well, I like to call buy now, pay later broke now, broke later. And let's think about this for a second. If you went to the bank and you wanted to borrow money for 6 months, would they give it to you for free? No, they're going to charge you interest. Why does the bank charge you interest? Because there's a cost on borrowing money. So now if you use buy now, pay later, and they tell you that you have the 0% APR for a certain period of time, how is it that they can give you this money for free and still be one of the most profitable or money-making, cash-generating industries in fintech? How does that make any sense? Well, it's because the buy now, pay later companies know that if you go out and you buy something with buy now, pay later with 0% APR, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go out and buy more stuff, because you don't feel any pain of seeing that $1,000 leave your account. It's only $45 leaving your account month after month after month. So now, when you only see $45 leaving your account and you still got $955 in your account, now you can go out and buy something else. Maybe you go buy a new sofa, maybe you go and buy a new TV, maybe you go and buy a new laptop, because you still got some cash in your account. So number one is you go out and spend more things, and this has been scientifically and mathematically proven, which is why these buy now, pay later companies make so much money. And then number two is they know that when you go out and you spend more money, you're also less likely to pay your stuff off in time. So now when you don't pay your stuff off in time, what happens? You get slapped with a brand new fine, brand new fees. And now you're not paying 5 or 10% interest. Now you're paying 25 to 30% interest on your buy now, pay later, or as I like to call it, broke now, broke later, 0% APR financing. And number 5 is stop blowing your money, literally, on things like alcohol, drugs, and Netflix. Now the alcohol and drugs are kind of obvious, and I know this is easy for me to say, so I'll kind of give you that disclaimer here, because I don't drink, I don't smoke. But if something is not adding value to your life, and it's sucking a lot of cash out of your life, you might want to start rethinking if that's something you really need in your life. And even in the business world, when I was getting started in the entrepreneurial space, a lot of people told me, how can you not drink? How are you going to make these business networks? How are you going to find people to want to work with you, because everybody goes to these events and drinks? Well, what was interesting is I would go to these events and I would not drink, and then people would ask why I'm not drinking, and then I would stand up for myself and say, because I don't want to drink, I don't drink. And some people respected that, some people didn't, but I continued to do my own thing, and now I work on my terms, not their terms. So no, in the business world, you don't have to drink, you don't have to smoke. And I know it's a hard thing to leave, but if it's sucking a lot of money out of you, maybe that could be a financial reason for you to want to stop. But what about Netflix? How can you tie Netflix into alcohol and drugs? Well, with Netflix, it's not really a financial thing, it's a time suck. Because what ends up happening with Netflix is that the average American statistically is spending over 2 hours a day watching TV. What is TV? Netflix. And so now if you're spending $15 a month on this TV that you're spending 2 hours a day watching, the cost isn't the $15 a month. The cost is the 2 hours of time you are devoting to the TV every single day. That's 60 hours a month. We're talking about over 700 hours a year. If you took that 700 hours a year and you transfigured that time to read books, to learn about how do you build wealth, to learn about how do you increase your income, to start building your own business, in 5 years, you would be in a completely different financial space. So yes, Netflix can be a drug because when you're sucked into this idea of I have to come home and I have to unwind for a couple hours, I have to watch TV, I have to just kill brain cells, well, you are also killing your time. And the one asset that none of us can buy more of is time. That is the most valuable asset that everybody has. Rich people, poor people, middle class people, it does not matter. You cannot get more of it. If that is the most valuable asset that you have, and our time is slowly ticking away, do you want to spend that time sitting there watching TV, or do you want to spend that time building your family's financial future? I'll let you decide. There's no right answer, and you can say whatever it is you feel is right for you. But I want you to think about that, especially when it comes to now, how do you grow your income? How do you grow your wealth? Well, if you have more time to grow your wealth, or you have more time to learn how to grow your wealth, that can completely change your and your family's financial future with just a few years worth of effort and devotion to it. I always wanted to be financially successful. My parents are immigrants from a state in India called Punjab, and I saw how hard they worked, and so I wanted to be financially successful. That way I could give back to my parents and I could take care of my family because I saw the hardships and the struggles that they went through. But I started to look at things differently than what everyone said that you should do when one day I was in college and I was sitting in the library and I was like, let me just take a look at the Forbes richest person list. And over there, you have people like Warren Buffett, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and I'm looking at these people and what they do. And what's interesting is none of these people follow that traditional path that everybody tells you to follow to become wealthy or to become successful. Now, I know not everybody can be the next Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk or Bill Gates and build a multi-billion-dollar business. I'm not saying that's what you should do. But there are many ways for you to become wealthy and retire a millionaire that many of us never learn. Actually, a lot of the financial advice that we get from the people around us is the reason why so many people are broke. Now, when it comes to really understanding money, there are 3 main points that I need you to understand that most of us have been completely lied to about money. And these are the 3 things that I'm going to be talking about in this video. But before I do that, I need you to do me a quick favor and smash the thumbs up button below. The first thing that all of us are taught about money is that money must be earned through labor, and this is one of the biggest lies out there when it comes to money, and this is a big reason why a lot of people will never become wealthy. Growing up, this was the only thing that I saw. My parents were immigrants, like I said, and so when you come to a new country with not that much money, where you don't speak the language, where you don't know the culture, you have to hustle to make it work. And so my dad had this thing where he would say, there's no such thing as sick days, because if you take a sick day, that means you're not going to work. If you're not going to work, you're not getting paid. If you're not getting paid, you don't have money to eat. Now, I was very fortunate. I was never poor. I never had to worry about where my next meal was going to come from. But I really understood the value of working hard because in my mind, the more you worked, the more money you would make. And it was to the point where if my parents had a Saturday and a Sunday off, a whole weekend off, this was considered a long vacation. But this method of earning money is how we're all taught to earn money. Here's how it works. Here's you right here. Gotta draw you, a nice mustache, or for our female audience, draw you a nice braid, or as we say in my native language, a gut. So here's you, and here is your job. And so what do? You go to your job, and every time you go to your job pays you a paycheck. Now, if you want to earn more money in this system, what do? Well, you go and get a good degree. Or you go and get a certificate, you get a master's, you become a doctor, you become an attorney, you become an engineer. So you get a better job to get a higher paycheck. But at the end of the day, it's still labor. Sure, maybe it's not physical labor, but you're still working. You go to a job every single day to get this paycheck. If you have a better job, you make more money. But this is where kind of one of the disconnects are about money, because yes, you can make money here, but this is not the only way to make money, because this is one of the biggest misconceptions that I had, because I always assumed that if you wanted to make money, you had to go to a job, you had to do a task, you had to do some work in order to get paid. But it doesn't work like that. Wealthy people and rich people do not make money in the system. Sure, maybe that's how they started off, or maybe this is how they attract some money, but that's not the only way they make money. What every single wealthy person does is they understand that they do not want to earn all their money through their labor because there's a limit to how much you can work. There's a limit to how many days you can work. There's a limit to how many hours you can work. And so what they do is they take this money right here. We'll call this your EI, your earned income. This is money that you have to go work to earn. And now they're gonna make this money and they're gonna put some of this money aside right here. And they're gonna take this money and they're gonna put it to work somewhere else for their PI, passive income, because there's a difference between your earned income, where you have to go to a job or where you have to go to your business, where you have to do something to earn money, and your passive income, where your money goes out and makes you money. This EI, this earned income right here, is not going to make you rich. I don't care what job you have. I don't care if you're a doctor. You are never going to become rich just with your salary right here. What you need to do if you want to become wealthy, this is whether you're making $25,000 a year or $2.5 million a year, is you got to take some of this money aside and you got to start putting it towards your passive income. This is what wealthy people do. Wealthy people take as much of this money here and they put it here because they understand that this is not going to make you rich. Because it doesn't matter how much money you make, as soon as you stop working, that money stops coming in. And so if you look at really what becoming wealthy is how much freedom you have. Here, it doesn't matter if you're running a business or if you have a job. It doesn't matter because now if you stop working, you stop getting paid. Now, this is assuming that you don't have a big business where you don't have to work in there to get paid. But if you have a small business or if you're working a job, you have to work to get paid. Now, what you got to do is you got to take this money, put it here. That way now you're getting paid even if you don't go to work, even if you don't do a specific task. And this is where real wealth is built. When I realized this concept, that was when I changed my life completely, at least financially, because I stopped working just for this. Before, anytime I made money, I'd want a nicer car. I'd want to upgrade my car. I'd want a new watch. I'd buy all these nice things. But when I realized that my money could fund my lifestyle, not just by making money and spending it, but by making money and using it the right way, by buying investments, assets, real estate, stocks, things that pay you, then I started changing what I did with my money. Instead of buying cars and watches, I started buying real estate. And these were things that started paying me with cash flow. And so what I understood was if I made enough money here from my passive income, then I could fund my entire life without making any money here. So it was a big shift in my mind, and this is where a lot of us are never taught that you can make money outside of just your job. In most of our minds, we think, okay, if we want to make money, what do? Well, we can get a job, we can start a business. But both of these are going to require a lot of work on your part, and if you don't work, you don't get paid. But you have to get paid even if you don't work, if you want to become wealthy. The way you do that, you get paid, whether it's from your job, your business, whatever, you get paid, you have to put money here. Now, I'm not going to be getting into investing and how you do that in this video because I got other things I want to talk about. But if you do want to learn more about how you can start investing in real estate for cash flow, I already made a video where I explain all that, and I'll link that video for you in the description below. This system is why you have some doctors that are broke and you have some people making $30,000 a year that retire wealthy, because when you live off of this, you will never be able to build wealth. But when you work to grow this so you can live off of this, you will become wealthy. And so what you want to do is stop living off of this and start living off of this. The second wrong thing that we're all told about money is that money is evil, or some sort of variation of this. Like in my house, money wasn't something that we really talked about, because in my culture, you don't really talk about money in that way. Like it's just kind of something that you just kind of assume is going to be okay. You don't talk about money. So at the same time, I know when I was growing up, my parents always told me that if I wanted to become successful, I should become a doctor. But we never talked about money management or investing or saving, because these things were kind of just bad and distractions. So we never talked about money. And anytime I did, I was always told, don't worry about money. It will be okay once you are a doctor. But here's the thing. In my culture, I'm going to keep it just completely real with you. In my culture, we don't talk about money. But at the same time, we have so many people drowning in debt. We have so many people that do not understand how to spend their money. We have so many people blowing their money on nice cars, but now do not have any money for their investments. We have so many people blowing their money on the wrong things and do not have a way to afford a decent lifestyle or afford a good education for their kids. And so we have all these kind of like confusions in the way that people use their money, and it all comes down to this, because we are scared to talk about money. But the reality is we have to start talking about money. That way we can start being good with our money. That way we can start building wealth for ourselves instead of making everybody else around us rich. And the unfortunate thing is the media does not help with this. The media, especially nowadays, we really start to see this kind of like divide between the rich and the poor. And anytime you hear people talk about someone rich or a corporation or whatever on the news, it's always portrayed as this evil person, right? Because rich people are evil in the media. But the thing that you have to understand is money at the end of the day does not make you a good person. Money does not make you a bad person. Money is just a tool. Okay, it does not make you bad. It does not make you good. It is a tool that you can use to take better care of your family. It's a tool that you can use to take better care of your parents. It's a tool that you can use to take better care of your spouse. It's a tool that you can use to take better care of your community. We live in this culture right now where people hate rich people. Why? Because they're rich. And this is where we have to kind of start breaking out of this mold and take a step back and say, why are we thinking like that? Why do we think this person's rich? Because they have become successful? Maybe instead of us hating on success and this richness or whatever you want to call it, how about we figure out how this person became successful so we can do it too? Because being broke has never helped anyone. Period. Okay? You can help more people if you have money. Money is just fuel. It amplifies what you do. If you want to feed hungry people, having $1 million can help you feed more hungry people. If you want to do more community service, sure, you as a person can do that. But if you have $1 million with you, you can do a whole lot more community service. Okay? So money is just fuel. It doesn't make you a good person. It doesn't make you a bad person. It amplifies who you are. It allows you to do more of whatever it is you want to do. I realize I never changed this 1 to a 2, so let me do that right now. Look, at the end of the day, money is just one part of your life. And yes, there are things that are way more important than money. Like, you got to be physically healthy. If you're on your deathbed, it doesn't matter how much money you make. Because if you're about to die or if you're so obese where you can't live your life, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You got to be mentally healthy. If you're depressed or you have all this anxiety so you cannot even live your life, it doesn't matter how much money you have if you cannot live happily. You have to have spiritual health. That doesn't mean you have to be religious. When I say spiritual health, I mean you got to have a purpose in your life. You got to have a reason to get out of bed in the morning. If you don't have a reason to get out of bed, you can have $10 million in the bank, but it doesn't mean anything because you don't have a purpose to your life. Once you have the physical fitness, the mental fitness, and the spiritual fitness, now is when being financially healthy is the most beneficial. But this is where everyone gets things screwed up because everyone says money doesn't buy happiness, so don't worry about money. Yeah, money is not going to buy you happiness, but being broke is not going to make you happy either. Money can help buy you the things that you want to do. That way you can do things that make you happy. And money can buy you freedom, but you got to understand where money plays a part in your life. And when you just put up the smoke screen by saying things like money's evil, so you don't got to talk about it, now you're just ignoring the issue and you're living in fairy tale la la land. And this brings me to number 3. And for the purposes of this one, I'm going to call this our dollars money. The third thing you got to understand, which is one of the biggest lies that we're told, is that this money is real money. When I was growing up, I had never heard of the word investing. No one in my family was a real estate investor. No one in my family knew a real estate investor. And so for us in our household, money management and being financially smart was working hard at your job, working as hard as possible, and then saving as much money as possible. And so you work hard, save as much money, and what do you do with the savings? You let those savings sit in the bank. You know, I've joked around about this before because there's a lot of difference between the traditional Indian culture and American culture, because in the Indian culture, people make $1 to spend 20 cents. In the American culture, people make $1 to spend $2 with the help of credit cards and loans and lines of credit. And so in that kind of traditional Indian culture, we have this kind of like saving bread into our blood. And so my parents were the same. They worked very, very hard, and then they saved as much money as possible, thinking that it was the financially smart thing to do. Now, it is better to save your money than to blow it at Gucci and Louis Vuitton and buy a whole bunch of nice things. But there's so much more to what you can do with your money, and the only way you're gonna do that is if you understand what money actually is. These dollars right here are just pieces of paper, and it only costs 12 cents to print a $100 bill. I don't have a $100 bill on me, so I'm going to show you a 50, but it costs 12 cents to print a $100 bill. And so this piece of paper now can be printed as much as the government and the Federal Reserve wants, and as more money gets printed and enters our circulation, the value of each dollar that you save and the value of each dollar that you earn now gets diluted. So if you were making $3,000 a month and more money gets printed, that $3,000 a month in a few years is not going to have the same buying power that $3,000 a month does today, because $3,000 a month in a few years is going to be more diluted because of all the dollars now in circulation than $3,000 a month does today. And so what happens? The price of your rent goes up. The price of your groceries go up. If you want to go on a vacation, your vacation costs go up. Gas prices go up. And so the prices of everything around you keep going up, while the wages don't necessarily keep up with now the higher cost of living and the higher standard of living. The average person's financial advice is work hard, make money, and save whatever you can. And this is the reason why most people will never become wealthy. A wealthy person would never follow that financial advice. A wealthy person is going to work hard, take whatever money they can and invest it, and only save what they need. A wealthy person is only going to save money for 3 reasons. They're going to save money for an emergency. And so now you got to have an emergency fund. This might be 3 months worth of expenses, up to a year's worth of expenses, depending on how conservative you want to be. A wealthy person will save for big purchases. This might be a home, this might be a car, and a wealthy person will save to invest their money. If saving your money does not fall into one of these 3 categories, you gotta do something with that money. This goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where financially educated people will take their money, their earned income, and they're gonna convert it to passive income. Well, it comes back to this right here too, because when you make money and you leave it in your bank account, your money stays flat. It's dead. But at the same time, the price of everything else keeps getting more and more expensive. So your money in your bank account is dead, but everything else keeps getting more expensive. So you are effectively becoming poorer and poorer day by day. That's why what wealthy people do is they take this money and they convert it to something else. They convert it to assets. This might be stocks. This might be real estate. Things that now make them more money. When you own shares of a stock, now you own a piece of a company, and this company's working hard to make more money, and as the company makes more money, so do you, because your stock price goes up or you get dividends. When you own real estate, you own a physical property, or if you're talking about crowdfunded real estate or something like that, now you own exposure to real estate. But when you own real estate, you own a real piece of property. You own brick, you own land, you own windows, and now if a tenant is living there, they're gonna be paying you rent every single month. So you have a stream of cash flow and you have a physical building. And so now you have real assets that are worth something because you own shares of a company or you own shares of a building. When you own money, just cash, just pieces of paper, you own pieces of paper that are losing value every single day. That's why you gotta understand why you're saving money. After you get past that, you gotta convert your cash to something real. I get it. Some of the stuff is gonna seem really weird and really out there, especially if you haven't been exposed to financial education before. But this is the reality of what's going on. If you are not happy with where you are financially, if you are struggling paying your bills, if you are struggling paying down your debt, if you do not know how you can be financially free, it is possible, but it starts with financial education, and it's tough because none of us are taught about money or financial education when we're in school. This is where you're gonna have to be the one to go out of your way to learn this financial education and then actually put it to action. But lucky for you, it is easier now than ever because there's so much information that you can access for free, literally on your fingertips. And if you're looking for a place you can learn, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel because we talk about this every single week. You go to school to learn how to become a valuable member of society, and then maybe you go off to college to refine the skill and learn some other skills. And once you're done with school, then you go off and you get a job, and now you're going to provide this value that you learned to the company that you're working for. The more value that you provide, the more money you make. That's why doctors make more than people who are cashiers at McDonald's. So you're making money at your job, and then you invest a little bit of money into your 401k. Maybe you have a side stock market account, and so you have your investments going on, and you continue to work until you're 65, and then you hope that by this time you have enough money in your investment account to live off of, and now you can retire and live this great life. But the thing that many of us never think about is that in order for the system to continue working the way it does, we need our economy to continue working and growing. Like, what happens if our dollars just go away? Sorry, Benji. What happens if people stop buying things? What happens if our economy slows down? What happens if we see a boom and a bust in our economic system? What then? This is where you have to understand how our economic system works, and there's 5 different factors that you need to understand. You gotta understand money. What is the money that we use? Then you gotta understand consumerism, how does our economic system continue to function? How does it grow? How does it slow down? Then you got to understand credit, because we live in a credit-based society where people don't spend money based off of how much money they have. They spend money based off of how much credit they qualify for. Then you got to understand our economic cycles and our asset cycles and our debt cycles. This is what creates booms and busts in our society. Then you got to understand the risk that this economic system creates for your finances and your money. These are the 5 things that I'm going to be going over in this video. But before I do that, I need you to do me a quick favor and smash that thumbs up button below, because the way the YouTube algorithm works, if you do not smash that thumbs up button, then YouTube is much less likely to show you and other people our financial news and education videos. Let's start here asking one of my favorite questions. What is money? Such an easy question, but it's still so hard to answer because it's not always so straightforward. I mean, money is what we work for every day at our jobs. Money is what we save in our bank accounts. But what is this money that we're earning and we're saving? This $100 bill is a physical representation of value. This is what we call money. In order for me to have this $100 bill in my possession, either I gotta steal it from you, which is illegal, or I gotta earn this money, which means I have to provide $100 worth of value to the world, and in exchange for the value that I provide, I earn this $100. Now, the interesting thing is this $100 does not have a set amount of value, because this $100 is something that we call fiat currency. If I go out and I create $100 worth of value, I earn this $100. But in order to create this $100, it doesn't take $100 worth of labor or $100 worth of work. I mean, it costs like 12 cents for the Federal Reserve Bank and the government to print this $100 bill. So it costs almost nothing to create this $100, but for me to earn this $100 and put it in my pocket, I have to create $100 worth of value. This is where there's a discrepancy, and this is why this is called a fiat currency, because this $100 is what the government has created and calls our currency, so this we can use as a tool to buy and sell things. Back in the day, before 1971, our dollars used to be backed by gold. So gold is a tangible commodity. It takes physical effort and labor to mine an ounce of gold, and so it was kind of like a very easy thing to benchmark value, because you'd go out and you go to your job and you create value and you earn $100. But it also takes effort and time and labor to mine an ounce of gold, which is what the $100 is. So back in the day, when you used to go to work to earn money, you knew that you were earning a certain amount of gold. That's what you were kind of benchmarking the value that you created by, because you would go to work and create this value at your job, and that would be valued based on the amount of gold that essentially you earned. And then instead of you actually physically carrying pieces of gold in your pocket, you could just carry these physical dollars, which was a representation of how much gold you were entitled to. So you went to work and you created this value, and you're entitled to physical value, which was the value that it took to create and mine physical gold. In the 1970s, our dollar was taken off of the gold standard, which allows for the government and the Federal Reserve Bank to more easily create this money, which allows more manipulation of our dollars. That's when our money became fiat currency, because our dollars are not backed by something tangible or an actual commodity. Our dollars are just backed by a promise by the United States government that our dollars have value. So our dollars are just paper, but is backed by the full support and the full faith of the United States government. Lucky for us, the United States government is the most powerful government in the world, with a very strong military presence and the strongest economy in the world. However, this paper money makes the value that you create at your job more manipulatable, because you might create $100 worth of value today. And now you take this value that you created, you worked for 5 hours at your job, you earned $100, and now you have this money, and now you take this value, because this money is a physical representation of the work that you did, you take this value and you put it in the bank. Now, if you let this money sit in the bank, what's going to happen? The value of this $100 is going to drop, because as more money is printed, because that's what happens when this money is paper, you can print more and more money. As more money is printed, the value of each dollar that you have goes down. That's why life keeps getting more expensive. Your rent keeps going up, your groceries keep going up, your medical bills keep going up, because of inflation. That's what happens when more money is printed. The value of your dollars go down, the price of things go up. So you worked hard to create this $100 worth of value today, but this value that you created can easily be manipulated because it's just paper. So the money that we work so hard to earn and save and invest is just paper. We're working really hard to earn these paper dollars, which is a physical representation of the amount of value that we created today. But this is where you have to decide, what do you do with the money that you earn? Do you save it? Do you invest it? Or do you spend it? Because when you spend it, you are spending the value that you earn today to buy something, a car, clothes, a vacation, whatever. When you save it, you are using this money and putting it in the bank. That way you can hopefully have this value later on if you ever need it. And when you invest it, you are using your money to own something hopefully tangible, maybe a real estate investment or gold, or maybe stocks, a paper investment, because these are things that are supposed to go up and create more value for you. So now you understand that the money that you're working so hard to earn and save and invest is just paper. Now, before I get into the next thing, I want to really quickly go over the difference between an asset and a liability, because this will help you understand how our economic system works, especially when it comes to spending money. So when you earn this money from your job, you have the ability to spend this money on either assets or liabilities. Assets are things that make you money. So when you buy an asset, this is things like a stock or a real estate investment or a business. You are spending your money in something for the sole purpose of making money. So if you spend your money to buy a business, not spending the money at a business, you're spending your money to buy a business. Now you're using your money to make you money, because when you buy a business, the goal is to make some more money because the business will make money. When you use your money to buy real estate as an investment, you are using your money to create a new income stream, because people will live in this property, they'll pay you rent, and now you have this asset that will hopefully go up in value. And when you invest your money in the stock market, now you're again investing in companies which will hopefully make you more money. So when you invest your money in assets, the whole goal is to invest your money into things that produce value, real estate, companies, whatever. That way you can make more money. Liabilities, on the other hand, are things that you spend your money on that take money away from you. This would be spending money on things like clothes and shoes and cars and vacations. These are things that are nice, and these are things that you need, but these are things that don't make you any money. So when you go and you buy yourself a really nice wardrobe, you buy yourself a really nice dinner, these are things that help support the economy because you're giving money to other businesses, but they don't make you any more money. So the thing that I'm going to be focusing mainly on in this video are liabilities, because when it comes to economic growth, it's all about people spending money at businesses. So you need to understand that this is what we're going to be talking about in this video. Moving on to spending money, consumerism. Now, I know consumerism has kind of a negative connotation, but for the purposes of this video, when I say consumerism, I'm just talking about spending your money, because money only has value when you spend it or when you use it. Like if I earn this $100 and it just sits there and I leave it on my desk and I leave it there until I die, this $100 doesn't really provide any value to anyone because it's just sitting there. Money only has value if you use it. Now, if I take this $100 and I go out and I buy myself a nice dinner, it provided me with value because it got me some nice food, hopefully some extra guac as well. But it also made the restaurant owner some money, plus the waiter or waitress and whatever tips I give them. So it is providing value to somebody else and it's providing value to me. Or if I take this $100 and I go out and I invest it somewhere in the stock market or whatever, it's still providing me more value because now I'm using this money and I'm turning it into an asset, which is something that will hopefully make me more money. So money only has value when you use it, and I'm going to be talking about now, how do you spend this money? The whole idea about consumerism in our economy is when you make more money, you have more money, and when you have more money, you can spend more money. Now, the more money you spend, the more money somebody else makes. Like if I spend $100 at a restaurant, that restaurant made $100. If I go out to a nicer restaurant and I spend $1,000, now this new restaurant made $1,000. So the more money I spend, the more money someone else makes. The more money you spend, the more money the economy makes. And so the more money that people spend in our economy, then the more money our economy is generating, which can spur and incentivize more growth. Because if I run a restaurant and I'm making a huge profit and I'm making all this money, now I have more money to invest in growth. I can open up another restaurant, I can expand my restaurant, I can create new food options, I can hire more employees, and now I can grow my company. If my restaurant isn't making any money because you're not spending money in my restaurant, now I don't have the money to grow. I don't have the money to keep paying my employees, so maybe I have to fire people, maybe I have to downsize, I have to find a smaller restaurant, and maybe I'll have to shut down my business because I'm not making any money. But if people are spending money, if you're spending money at my restaurant and people are spending money at other businesses, then businesses make more money. When they have more money, then they have the ability to invest in growth, which means they can open up new businesses, new stores, new offices, which means more people can be hired. And when more people are hired, now you have more people who have money. When you have more people who have money, now more people have money that they can spend. Now more people have money to buy homes, more people have money to buy cars, more people have money to go on vacations, and the more money that people spend, the more our economy grows. Now, when it comes to consumerism, the way our society works, hate it or love it, is the more value that you provide to the world, the more money that you make. Like I was mentioning just a minute ago, if you are a doctor, you provide more value to the world because you have a special skill that most people cannot provide, that most people do not have, and so you can charge more money per hour as compared to somebody who's flipping burgers at McDonald's. You're not providing as much value, which is why you don't make as much money as a doctor does. Now, this also comes to product creation and value creation, because if you can create a product that everybody wants, you will be able to make more money, because we live in a society where people don't put a gun to your head telling you to buy an iPhone. If you want to go and buy an iPhone, that is by your choice. And so if everybody is buying an iPhone, now the Apple company gets to make more money, and when they make more money, they get to choose how they want to use this money and how they want to invest this money and how many employees they want to hire and grow. But at the end of the day, it's consumer driven. It's the consumer that gets to decide, because if people stop buying iPhones, then Apple is going to change their business, or they're gonna go out of business. I mean, it's like people hating Walmart. People hate Walmart for one reason or another, but if you don't shop at Walmart and then you start shopping at Whole Foods instead, then you're gonna end up paying a whole lot more money for your groceries, because Walmart provides a different value than Whole Foods does. And so every company provides a different value. Like Walmart is the place to go to get cheap groceries. Whole Foods is the place to go to buy really expensive avocados. In general, when it comes to value, there are 4 different types of value creations out there. So when companies try to create products, or entrepreneurs try to create value and create a new company, there's 4 different areas of value that you typically see created. One is your necessities. These are the things that we need to survive. So food, water, shelter, these are the things that we need in order to continue living our general lives. So this does not include your iPhone, because if you didn't have an iPhone, you technically shouldn't die. I know some people might, but you should not die if you don't have an iPhone. So your necessities are things like food, water, shelter, things that we need in order to survive. Things that make your life easier are now your necessities that are more kind of transformed to make your life easier. So this would be a nicer home. So now instead of just a place that gives you a roof over your head, now we're talking about a mansion, or we're talking about better bottled water. People who are paying $6 for a bottle of water are to make your life easier because it's supposed to be a better product, whatever. And then we have things like the iPhone, because it's supposed to make your life easier as opposed to maybe a flip phone or a nice laptop. Once we get past the necessities, now we're talking about things that we can use to improve our lives. This can be products, like I just talked about, or it can be services. Housekeepers, people who mow your lawn, people who get your groceries for you, people who clean your house, just services or things that make your life a little bit easier. Then we have the things that make your life a little bit cheaper. So these are things like the Walmarts. Walmart is your affordable way to shop. You're not going to get the same experience at Walmart as you are at Gucci, because they cater to different people and they have different values that they provide. Walmart's job is to give you things at a cheaper price. Gucci's job is to give you something that's completely overpriced, and because they're making more money, they can give you a better service. And then last but not least, we have everything else. This is typically only reserved when you have kind of a society that's more developed and that's kind of more wealthy, because these are the things that you don't need to survive. These are things that are not going to make your life easier. They're not making your life cheaper. This is just everything else that doesn't really provide any real value to your survival. It's just something there because there's money for it. You could think of this kind of like paying a lot of money for Pokemon cards. Pokemon cards don't make your life easier. They don't make your life cheaper. You don't need Pokemon cards to survive, but we're living in a society where we have enough wealth to be able to spend money on things like Pokemon cards. This is a luxury that you see in first world countries, not typically in third world countries where people are struggling here with the necessities. But when you have this wealth, you have this money in your society, then you can create this whole new value of things that people don't even need, but it's just something that you can create value behind. So you're going to work every single day to make this money, the paper money, the fiat currency that I just talked about. And now when you have this money, which is a representation of how much value that you create, you can spend this money in order to give more value to yourself. This could include things that you need in order to survive, things that can make your life easier, things that can make your life cheaper, and everything else.
the more money you have, the more money that you can spend, and the more money that you spend, the more money that somebody else makes. We live in a consumerism society where the more money you make, the more money you have, and the more money you have, the more money you spend. Now, the more money you spend, the more money that somebody else makes, and the more our economy grows, because now businesses will have more money to invest in growth. And as businesses grow and our economy grows, now people will have more jobs. And as people have more jobs, now this whole cycle continues, because then we have more people who have income streams, more people who have money to spend. And as more people have money to spend, more people can spend more money, which fuels the growth of our economy. This brings us to number 3, understanding how we are a credit-based economy. So credit means you have the ability today to spend money that you haven't actually earned yet. And so you can think of it like this. Let's assume that you make $50,000 a year from your job, which means you have the ability to only spend $50,000 max. Actually, it's a little bit less than that, because before you can actually spend any money, the IRS, the government's gonna want their cut. And so after you pay your taxes, you might only be left with, let's say, $40,000. That's the only amount of money that you're able to spend. But if we include credit into the equation, now you have $40,000 of value that you earned. This is the money that you earned from your job. And now because of credit, you can spend way more than $40,000. You might be able to spend $100,000 thanks to the help of loans and lines of credit and credit cards, which allows you to spend more money and get more value for yourself today, even though you haven't earned all that money today. Let me start with this. What is debt? Debt is when you borrow money against your future self, your future earnings, and you spend this money today. So if you go out and you borrow $100,000, you were taking $100,000 from your future self, from your future earnings, and you're spending that $100,000 today. Now, what you have to do is once you spend this $100,000, you got to pay this $100,000 back over a number of years plus interest. So you're going to be paying this $100,000 back over the future, over your future earnings plus interest. So debt or credit allows you to take your future earnings and spend this money today, and this all you got to do is pay back plus interest. The thing you got to understand about debt and credit, especially when it comes to our economy, is this a good thing? Well, it depends who you ask. Let's start by looking at credit from the perspective of our economy. If before you made $50,000 a year, then you would only be able to spend $50,000 minus your taxes. But now, if you factor credit or debt into it, now you might be able to spend $100,000 today, even though you only made $50,000. So before, if you go into a restaurant, you might have only been able to afford a $100 dinner. But because you have credit, because you can borrow money from the bank, because you have a credit card in your pocket, now you can buy yourself a nicer dinner. You can buy yourself nicer drinks. You can buy yourself a whole lot more food. And so now, because you have access to more money through credit, you have the ability to spend $200, not $100. And so now the restaurant owner, they don't know the difference whether you're spending credit or your money, because in their eyes, in the economic market, the credit or money that you spend is the exact same thing. Money and credit acts the same in our economy, and so now you're just able to spend more money. And so now if you can spend twice as much money as before, now businesses are making more money, which means if this restaurant can just double the amount of money they're making because people have access to credit, now this restaurant has just doubled their revenue, they can hire more employees, they can open more restaurants, and now our economy can grow twice as fast because we have just increased the amount of money in circulation because people have access to credit, because now they're not spending money based off of how much money they earned, they're spending money based off of how much credit they qualify for. Now, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, I'm just telling you how our economic system works. Now, from an economic standpoint, having this credit-based society in general is good. Now, obviously there's exceptions to this, because if you have too much credit, you run into booms and busts. I'll get to that in just a minute. But in general, people having access to more credit or more money, more spending power is good for the economy, because now companies can make more money, which allows them to have more money to invest in growth, which allows our economy to grow faster and bigger. What about from the perspective of an investor? Now, remember what I talked about before, buying assets versus liabilities? An investor is somebody who's using the money to buy assets. Before, let's say you had $100,000 and you wanted to buy some real estate. If you didn't have access to credit, you could use this $100,000 to buy a $100,000 property, and let's just say over 20 years, this $100,000 property makes you your money back and the property value doubles. So you made yourself another $100,000. But now, because you have access to credit, you can go out and take the $100,000 and use it to buy a $500,000 property. Now, when you own this $500,000 property, you will continue to make rental income. And if you continue to see that same growth, now this money will be paid off and the property value, let's just assume, doubles. So you took your $100,000, you bought a $500,000 property, and over 20 years, this $500,000 property doubles to $1 million. So now you have a $1 million property, you only paid 3% interest on it, and now you made $900,000 as opposed to just $100,000 if you didn't have credit. Now, again, is there risk involved? Yes, I'm going to get to that later in this video, but credit and debt allows you to make more money and better returns because now you can leverage up your investments. If you can borrow money at 3% or at 4% and you can grow your money at 6%, now you are making more money because you're using the bank's money to make you more money. So if you're an investor and you're an asset holder, this is good for you because now you have access to more money that you can invest and you don't have to earn all the money that you're investing. You can use other people's money, the bank's money, to invest for you. The third type of person you have to ask is the consumer, the average person, regular people. Is debt good for you? Well, again, what is debt? Debt is when you use your future earnings that you can spend today that you just got to pay back with interest. So if we're talking about the average consumer who's using their money to buy liabilities, these are things that are making you broke. So you're buying more clothes, more cars, more shoes, things that aren't making any money, but they make you look rich. They make you feel good because you have nicer things. You can drive better cars, you can wear better clothes, you can go on better vacations today because you have access to debt. And so if you ask a consumer, they might tell you that it's good because they can buy nicer things and they can have nicer stuff. But from a financial perspective, you are using your future earnings, you're using tomorrow's earnings and next year's earnings and next decade's earnings to buy things that are making you broke today. So from a consumer standpoint, financially, this credit is not good for the consumer because you're spending your future money today on things that are making you broke. Again, this is the society that we live in. And this is where a lot of people start to complain and they start to blame the system because the system abuses people who don't understand money. If you don't understand how our economic system works, if you don't understand how money works, guess what? You're the one coming out on the losing side of the equation because the system rewards people who understand money and who understand how the economic system works. And so what I want you to do is kind of break away from the majority mindset, come into the minority mindset. I mean, that is why we're called the minority mindset, because we think different than the majority people and understand how money works. That way you can use the system for your advantage. So here we are in an economic system where you're going to work every single day to earn this money, which is actually just paper. And when you have this paper money in your pocket, you can spend it however you want. The more money you spend, the more our economy grows, and you have the ability, thanks to our credit-based economy, to spend more money than you've actually earned thanks to the help of debt and credit. Now, it's your choice on how you actually use your money. Are you using your money just to buy liabilities, or are you using your money to buy assets? That way you can benefit from this economic system. But what you have to also understand now is our money can be manipulated because the government and the Federal Reserve Bank can print more money. And now, because people have more money and because people have access to debt, that's why you can kind of see booms and busts happen in our economic system and in asset classes, because people can get excited and they can start buying up a stock or an investment or an asset, and this asset can now become overpriced because there's just a lot of money out there and people get greedy, they get speculative, and they start buying hoping that they can get rich quickly, and this can create a bubble. And if the bubble pops, now you just had a boom and bust cycle. Again, this might sound like a really bad thing at first glance, but it really just depends on who you're asking. I mean, if the question is, are rising home prices a good thing or bad thing? Depends who you're asking. Are you asking a homeowner? Because for a homeowner, rising home prices are a great thing because they already own a home, and when home prices go up, they just automatically built more equity in their homes by doing nothing, and so they have become more wealthy because their home is now worth more money. If you ask somebody who wants to buy a home, are rising home prices a good thing? They're gonna tell you no, because somebody who wants to buy a home doesn't want to overpay for a home. They want home prices to crash, that way they can buy a home for a lower price. Same with stock market investing. People talk all the time about how rising stock prices are great, but who are rising stock prices good for? Rising stock prices are good for asset owners. If you own stocks, then yeah, rising stock prices are great because now you're making more money, you're becoming more wealthy. But if you don't own any stocks, then rising stock prices don't do any good for you because you're not making any money, but everybody else is making a whole bunch of money, so you feel like you're becoming poorer while everybody else is becoming wealthier. To build on top of everything that we just talked about, there's more than just one type of economic cycle out there. I mean, we have our own economy cycles, cycles where our economy is growing and sometimes our economy is slowing down. We have asset cycles when we see stock market prices up, sometimes stock market prices are falling. And then we also have debt cycles. Sometimes interest rates are up, sometimes interest rates are low. All three of these things affect our economy in different ways. Starting here with economic cycles. So sometimes our economy is booming. Sometimes our economy is in a recession, meaning our economy is slowing. And so this goes back to spending. Because if people are spending money and more people are spending money and our economy is growing, that means our economy is in a boom phase. One thing that can help with that is how much money, how much credit is out there. Because if more people are creditworthy, more people can qualify for more money, more people can spend more money, and this helps our economy grow. But at the same time, for our economy to keep growing, we need more value to be produced in our economy. So companies have to keep producing more value, companies have to keep innovating, and jobs have to keep being created. And so there's a few different factors you have to look at here. You have to look at how many jobs out there, you have to look at how much money people are making with wages, and you have to look at something called consumer confidence. What could happen is people are worried about a potential recession. If people are worried about a potential recession, now something called consumer confidence goes down because consumers, people, are not confident in the economy, and when they're not confident in the economy, they stop spending money. When people are worried about a recession, they start saving money. And now that's good for the consumer because now they're saving money and protecting themselves and building their own wealth. But when people stop spending money, that means businesses stop making money. Businesses stop making money, businesses don't have the ability to keep growing, and that could cause the economy to go into a recession. So this is kind of balance between consumers and the economy, where you have to understand that economic cycles do happen. And this happens every 8 to 10 years, where you'll see the economy go from boom to bust. Now, every boom and bust doesn't have to be huge. Like the 2008 crash that we saw, the economic crash, that was kind of like a once-in-a-lifetime type of economic crash. Now, interestingly, we were lucky enough to see two once-in-a-lifetime crashes in just a couple of decades, because in 2020, we saw another once-in-a-lifetime type of crash. But every boom and bust in the economy doesn't have to be very large. Sometimes these recessions are very small, and a lot of people might not even notice it. But sometimes they're going to be big, 2008 level, but that usually doesn't happen very often. However, these economic cycles continue to happen every 8 to 10 years. Does that mean it's always going to happen within that time frame? No, but in general what happens is the economy starts to grow, the economy starts to boom, and then the economy starts to grow too fast, and then the economy needs to cool down. Maybe people took on too much debt, and so we need to kind of go through the savings phase where the economy needs to slow down a little bit so consumers can save some money, they can pay off some of their debt, and so the economy doesn't grow as fast. And so you kind of just go through this cycle where the economy grows, it grows too fast, and then it needs to cool down a little bit, and then it grows even bigger. When we talk about asset cycles, now we're talking about things like the stock market and real estate. And this is a little bit easier to calculate because everyone's always talking about investing in the stock market or investing in real estate. So it's easier for people to see and feel. But the thing about asset cycles is they can be a little bit more manipulated by the government or other entities, because like we saw happen in 2020 when the stock market crashed in 2020, the government came out through the help of the Federal Reserve Bank and they started printing all this money and they started bailing out the stock market to help the stock market go back up. Likewise, in the real estate market, we can see the government come out and create regulations that stop banks from being able to foreclose on homeowners. And so if banks can't foreclose on homeowners, that limits the supply of homes available for sale. And that kind of keeps home prices artificially inflated because homeowners are not being foreclosed on. So these asset cycles can kind of be influenced, especially for the short term, thanks to regulations and the government and other entities like that. But in general, asset cycles are when stock prices and real estate prices and other asset prices go up, and then they go too high, and then they kind of come down to cool off. Nothing can go straight up forever, and when things get overheated, they go too high, and that's what causes them to correct, which is why we have these cycles. And so asset cycles typically last somewhere between 8 to 20 years. Now, sometimes it could be less, sometimes it could be more, but typically it's within that range. Debt cycles or interest rate cycles are much harder to track because these are a very long and slow moving cycle. Typically interest rate cycles take somewhere between 50 to 100 years before they move through a whole cycle. Like back at around 1930s, interest rates were right around 0%. Then in the early 1980s, interest rates peaked as something like 20%. So if you wanted to get a mortgage for a home in the early 1980s, you might have been paying something like 20% interest a year on your home. Now at the time of me recording this video, interest rates have come all the way back down to right around 0%. And so it takes almost 100 years to go through this entire interest rate cycle, but this is one of the debt cycles that happens in our economy as well, where interest rates go very low, then they start to go up, and then they come back down. But it's kind of like a jagged curve, because anytime you enter an economic crash, an economic bust, then you see interest rates get cut to help stimulate the economy. This goes back to what we just talked about, because when people have more access to credit, more access to debt, that helps stimulate the economy. And so when you're in a recession, one of the things that you can do is lower interest rates, which makes borrowing money cheaper, which makes more people go out and borrow money, which helps spur the economy, which helps grow the economy, which will ultimately grow assets too, because when people see the economy is growing, they're more likely to invest in assets like the stock market and real estate, because they want to be a part of the economic growth. The reason a lot of people hate talking about the whole idea of booms and busts is because a lot of times they don't understand it. And so when a bust happens, many people get emotional, they panic sell, and then they lose a lot of money. So people will sell out their 401ks, they'll sell out their life savings, their retirements, because they're worried about what's going to happen in the economy, and they're worried when they see these asset prices tank, or when they're worried about the economy going down. But what you have to understand is, if you believe in the overall health of the economy and the country, then over the long term, these cycles will turn around and the economy will grow again, which will help asset prices go up too. Now, there's a whole lot more to understanding economic cycles and asset cycles. I'm not going to go over all that in this video because that is a very long topic. But if you want to learn more about that, I already made a video where I did talk about it, and I'll link it for you in the description below. And this brings me to the fifth factor that you need to understand, which is risk. This is going to be a much bigger issue as time goes on, because our economy has become so large. Like, our United States economy is a massive behemoth. When you're that big, it becomes harder for you to grow quickly just because you're so large. Like, think of it kind of like pushing a wheel. When you're a small little wheel, it's much easier to get you to do a full revolution, because you can kind of just push it and the wheel will start to go. But once you become a very, very, very large wheel like our United States economy is, it's much harder to get you to move as fast, because you're so big. And so the bigger you become, the harder it is to grow. But at the same time, the economy wants to keep growing, because the United States doesn't want to become a stagnant economy. They want to keep growing bigger and faster, because they want to stay the world superpower. But if you want to keep growing fast when you're this big behemoth, you might have to take on more risk in order to keep growing, because you're so large, and it's not so easy to move when you're that big. Now, to put this in perspective, back before the year 2000, our economy, our GDP, would grow by 4%, 5%, 6%, even 7% a year. Now, we are very happy when our economy, our GDP, grows by just 2% a year, because of how big our economy is. And so now politicians and the government have this kind of pressure to push our economy to grow even faster, which means that we might have to take on even more risk to keep our economy growing at a certain rate. That way we can stay competitive as the world's economic superpower. So what does that mean? How do you encourage the economy to grow even faster? Well, that's everything that we just talked about. That might mean getting more money into the hands of people. That might mean encouraging people to spend more money. That might mean encouraging people to go into more debt, or to make interest rates even lower. That way people are incentivized to go deeper into debt. Now, when you create all of these more incentives, where you're pumping more money into the economy, you're lowering interest rates, you're encouraging people to spend more money, now you're increasing the risk, which could cause more of the booms and busts, or bigger booms and busts, just because we're trying to do so much to grow our economy, which means we take on more risk. And as you take on more risk, you could see more of these kind of wild swings. So you, as a financially educated person, now need to understand how the economy works, which is what we just talked about. But you need to also understand how to use your money that you're working hard to earn, and how to deploy it. That way you can use your money to build your own wealth, instead of just making wealth and making everybody else around you rich. You need to know how to use your money the right way. That way you can use this economic system to your advantage, instead of just being one of the people that's just getting abused by the system. We talk about building a business that's scalable. I've talked about that many times, where you want to build something that can grow, that doesn't necessarily need you. That's the definition of scalability, that it can grow and it doesn't necessarily need you to grow. But if you want that business to be able to grow and not need you to grow, you have to do things that can't grow. The